I actually just got the full series of the Trick or Treat Goosebumps figures completed. There were 5 of them. They ended up putting them out at Walmart. So I ran and scooped those up as quick as I possibly could because they're really cool. So yeah, I have my RL Shrine. I'm AJ Spencer. I'm a author and sometimes indie filmmaker from Kentucky. I like to dabble in writing mostly horror, but also sometimes sci-fi adjacent stories and psychological thrillers. I actually just got the full series of the Trick or Treat Goosebumps figures completed. There were 5 of them. They ended up putting them out at Walmart. So I ran and scooped those up as quick as I possibly could because they're really cool. So yeah, I have my RL Shrine. I would almost have to say that I think Friendo stands a good chance just because Friendo has a lot of friends. And, the Scarecrow is kind of a loner. I don't think he has as many people backing him as Friendo. I know they just did a big thing for it, a big event at the San Diego Comic-Con where they built Kettle Springs, the town from the book and the movie, which I thought was amazing. The book and the movie, I will say, are 2 different beasts, but they both work for their own reasons. I am a huge sucker for nostalgia. I'm a product of the 90s. Goosebumps, Erie, Indiana, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Those things were a huge part of my childhood, as well as the X-Files, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There was just all these cool things in the 90s. Now you don't have too many spooky things that are geared towards teens and young adults. It just seems like the 90s was peak for that. Like, it was ripe with it. The Legacy cast seems to be down for it. They're either involved or coming back in some capacity, which I don't know how that's going to work, but I have hope. I don't think that Sarah Michelle Gellar would have signed on to it if she wasn't happy with what they pitched to her. When I mentioned the X-Files earlier, they are talking about rebooting that as well with the writer-director of the recent vampire movie Sinners, Ryan Coogler. I'm so hyped for that as well because I love Sinners so much, and I think he will do a great job. The stories in there are collected from short stories that I started writing when I started trying to write, I don't want to say professionally, but when I started taking it a little bit more seriously and getting into these writing communities. These are some of the short stories that I posted on online forums that are no longer around and were publicized in local magazines and newspapers. I wanted to compile them into one solid edition. Why not put this out there and see where it goes? So I did that and it was received pretty well. There's a website called Read Freely that put it up for the top 50 indie books of 2021, and I was surprised and excited and decided to continue the writing journey from there. This Town Died With You was conceived from actual local lore. We have one of the oldest and biggest cemeteries here in Louisville called Cave Hill Cemetery. Right adjacent to that is a smaller cemetery. There were documents showing some wrongdoings that happened and mismanagement of the cemetery and crematorium that's on the same plot of land. I kind of built a story around that, kind of like a crossover between Evil Dead and the movie Phantasm. It was probably my most gory story I've written so far. I just had fun with it. I feel like that's probably also the most adult story I've written so far. The Foot Doctor, I wanted to do something with psychological horror and body horror. That one is not going to be for people who don't like things that are more squeamish. I actually said that This Town Died With You is gory, but The Foot Doctor does have some pretty... I kind of didn't hold back on those two. I was going for more of a Richard Lehman or Jack Ketchum something that their audiences would read before you found it at a scholastic book fair. So Liquor Guys is my take on the zombie genre. I wanted to incorporate modern technology and the classic zombie story. That's the first time where I wrote my main character is younger. The characters in this one are teenagers. The main character, Lan Lohman, his family comes back from a disastrous vacation to find that their troubles aren't over yet. They're going to have to figure out what's causing this epidemic that's happened to the city that they had just taken a vacation from and barely made it back. They end up having a whole new set of problems, I'll say that. And so it's this family's escape from a epidemic. I have some short stories out there. One of them is in a anthology that's all Halloween themed called Fall Equinox. That's probably one of the favorite anthologies I've done. I have a story in there called The Pumpkin Eater. That was kind of a creature feature. It'll put you in that mood, the fall mood. I just loved being a part of that. I was in an anthology called The Clubhouse. They let us kind of just run wild with that and do whatever we wanted. So that was a lot of fun. The one in The Clubhouse it was about a genre of music that's not much appreciated as it used to be, but horrorcore rap. I kind of wanted to touch on that because I remember listening to so much of it when I was in middle school. It's not as big as it used to be, but it's kind of crazy how integrated into the culture it was at one point. I love writing book recommendations for horror fam. Use it a lot of the time to try to shine a spotlight on indie authors, people without a huge name, people who aren't Stephen King, Dean Koontz, the people you are used to seeing their names pop up on every book list. I wanted to kind of show people that there are actually a lot of good indie writers out there that are worth your time. Everything I write is usually, so far, has been horror adjacent. Big psychological horror person. I like slashers. Anything that's not too formulaic. The things that Stephen Graham Jones is doing with the slasher, I love it. Also, anything really silly and campy. I'm a huge fan of B-horror. I think that horror can be just as enjoyable as it is terrifying. And I like it. I like finding that balance between really fun and still terrifying. Scott Downley he's a really good friend of mine. He also bounces back and forth between writing adult horror and horror that's more geared towards younger audiences. I've been a guest writer on one of his shows. There's an audio drama that he's involved with called Micro Tears, which are scary stories for children. His novella Cheater Cheater recently got filmed into a movie. Laurel Hightower is another fellow author from Kentucky. She is amazing. She's really good at doing suspense and building tension. She wrote, I'm not even joking, I think I can feel safe to say it's probably one of the best Mothman books I've ever read, called Below. I wish I had written it when I read it. It's hard to say where to start with her work because she's everything. Just read everything you can by her. CJ Lead has written 2 books so far, or published 2 books. One of them is called Mayfly, almost a feminist version of American Psycho. It was so good. She has a book called American Rapture. It's an apocalypse story, but unlike anything you've ever read. Trigger warnings do abound for that one. I'll go ahead and say that one. There's a lot of adult content in it. Other than that, it's best to go into that one blind. Readers will really, really be surprised. I've appeared as a panelist there a couple times. It's a great event, both as an attendee and a guest. It's full of like-minded creative people, and when you go in there, you will just feel yourself automatically getting inspired. It's a good environment to be in as a creative. You have all these people there that are not only writers, there's filmmakers, musicians, all these different types of artists, and you get overcome by it. Just want to go home and create something now. Just anything. My very first memory of falling in love with horror, I might have even been as young as 5 or 6. I popped a blank VHS into the VCR and played it. It had a Nightmare on Elm Street on it, the first one. I watched it, probably shouldn't have, and was traumatized for a while. I found myself going back a few days later and was like going to my parents like, what is this? I need more. There were a lot of parts back then where they would make me look away and stuff like that, but for the most part they let me watch just about anything. And I started wanting to rent a lot of the full moon feature stuff. I was freaked out by Puppet Master and Reanimator. Anything Charles Band or Stuart Gordon put out, I automatically loved it. Back in high school, my English teacher had us do this assignment one day where we wrote a screenplay because he was teaching us about the screenplay format. Everybody turned in their script and he's like, okay, I'm going to pick one. As a class, we're going to make their movie. I was big on Quentin Tarantino at the time, and I wrote this kind of like Reservoir Dogs-esque heist film. We made a little 10-minute movie out of it. It's probably one of the most fun experiences I ever had in school, and I wanted to keep doing it. Once I got out of high school and started trying to put bigger productions together, I realized how hard it is too. It takes a lot of people to put a film project together. I worked on as many people's sets as possible to learn the ins and outs. I would go to all my friends that were in film school and say, hey, do you need a grip or a production assistant? Just anything I can do, I don't care. I'll work for free or food. Ended up getting a lot of hands-on experience, meeting a lot of cool people locally. We don't have a big film scene here yet, but it's grown. Here in Lexington, we recently had a big studio put up called Lex Studios, I think it is. People have been going there and filming these really sharp-looking short films to put on YouTube and stuff. That's kind of what I've been working on lately, is short format for YouTube and stuff like that. I want to build a YouTube channel and post some short work on there. Don't be afraid to just power through your rough draft, because the rough draft is never going to be great. It's not going to be perfect in exactly the way you wanted it first. I believe it was Stephen King who said this. It's almost like you're sifting through a litter box, right? And when you write your rough draft, you must have to scoop out all the waste that doesn't work, and you end up getting left with the good stuff. I think that that's good advice. It's hard to get through that first draft because of it. You're going to look back, and when you read what you wrote, you're going to be like, oh, this doesn't sound good at all. You're going to get imposter syndrome, probably tell yourself you're a fraud, and it's not worth your time. But I assure you that if you just power through it and then go back and rewrite, I think that you're eventually going to have something that you're happy with. So never throw out those first drafts. Don't be afraid to take big swings, because I think that we see a lot of people doing that now creatively, and it usually ends up working out for them. The horror community to me has always been the most accepting, most non-judgmental people that I've ever met in my life, that just happen to have the same weird interests as I do. I was one of those kids. I didn't really fit in much anywhere. The other kids that were into like Goosebumps and stuff like that, and comic books and things like that, they were always my people about anything that you liked, and they would want to talk about it. Anything you nerded out on. Now you can find them from all over the world. You know, we didn't always have access to social media and finding tens and thousands of people that like this really niche thing that you didn't think anybody ever knew about. You can come to them and you'll be like, you know, I like this weird thing, and they'll be like, that's not weird. And sometimes they'll even like one up you and be like, oh, if you want weird, this is weird. And then you're like, oh wow, they'll help you find something else that you've never seen that you love. You know, anybody that ever wants to talk horror or anything nerdy, really, you can come find me, and I will let you talk my ear off about whatever you geek out about. I've always thought of horror as a type of therapy, because I think that almost every major horror character was formed from somebody trying to face their biggest fears. You give your fear a metaphorical or physical presence. The main character is usually trying to tackle that thing and figure out how to defeat it, which you could look at as the creator trying to work out their own insecurities or their own worries. It's a great way to do that because you're writing this thing, and I think sometimes you don't even realize it was really about something that you face the whole time. It could be in your subconscious, and then once you're done with it and you take a step back and you're like, hey, I think I worked through something here. If nothing else works out, I could just have it say he was a great trier. You know, I tried a lot of things. So I also just hope that my daughter wants all my collectibles because I have a lot of them, and I would hate to see those just end up in a landfill. So I'm hoping that she ends up liking spooky stuff and wants to hang on to all of my horror figures and things like that. Pass on the Arl Shrine to her kids if she has them. Yes.